Hi guys, welcome back to Schauer Thoughts. My name is Sarah Schauer, and this is part 2 on how to stick to your New Year's resolutions using neuroscience and behavioral psychology. We started this off last week, and I'd have to do a little correction from last week. I thought that this episode would come out in the new year, but no, it's coming out New Year's Eve. Woohoo! What luck! So I caught you guys just in time. But we're going to be doing part 2. We are recording this back to back, but what's new with me? Ooh, I did get an email from the neuroscience, the Society for Neuroscience, and they did a follow-up session, and they said, call for session proposals, Neuroscience 2026, which is happening in November in D.C. On behalf of the Society for Neuroscience, we invite you to submit a session proposal for Neuroscience 2026. They are is committed to fostering a rich intellectual community where neuroscience researchers can thrive, exchange new ideas. So I don't know if they meant to send that to me because I looked at it. You have to be a active member of the Society for Neuroscience. But if I were to write up a proposal, it would be a lecture, a session on the peripheral nervous system. And of course, well, this is not obvious. On this, you need at least one member on the session. And obviously a neuroscientist, so I'd have to reach out to a neuroscientist, neurologist. I'd have to work with someone who specializes in the peripheral nervous system because the thing is no one really studies the peripheral nervous system. It's all central. And the thing is I get it. The brain, brainstem, they're glamorous. But your body matters too. It really does. And it's just because we've already talked about it a million times this year. No one integrates anything. The nervous system is bidirectional. Most processes in the body are bidirectional. So there's two flows of information. And it seems like everyone just wants to focus on like what's coming down from the brain, right? You're like only one flow of it, only one way understanding of information. And the thing is what it bugs me so much about people not integrating information on the central and peripheral nervous system is that it's oftentimes you'll read some papers from people focusing on the brain, and they're like, God, we're really trying to troubleshoot this error, but there seems to be like, there's some error code, quote unquote, coming up from like, for example, your feet, and we can't seem to figure out why. Just studying the brain, it's happening. They don't really look into the tissues, the muscles, the related organs. They're kind of like, oh, we just have the message from the brain and that's it. However, when you're trying to fix things, it's sort of like going to a mechanic and get like a diagnostic sort of test run on your car. And then they're like, oh, there's an error code coming up from the brakes. And then watching the mechanic try to fix your brakes from inside the car on the tablet doing the diagnostic test, it's like, get out of the car. Go look at the brakes. Sometimes you actually do need to get out of the car, even though you're receiving the messages just fine. Because then the thing is they start to only fine-tune the messages coming from your brain, right? They're like, oh, we need to adjust the serotonin levels, or we need to adjust, with the medications. And while that's good and great, and that is an option, it's kind of like just kind of shutting up the error messages. Kind of like tuning out, like, oh, we can't figure out the error code coming from your brakes, so we're just going to give you an override and like kind of like tune out the error code. Okay, so the brakes still need to be addressed. Just because, you've kind of quieted the error code from the brakes doesn't mean that, it's now safe to drive. You know what I mean? So it's why I really want someone to integrate information. And then also additionally, something I was thinking about is this is a parallel I'm going to set up. So I do take issue with the scientific method. We all know that to be true. However, the thing is I still value it greatly. Every time I critique something, someone's like, oh, so you don't believe in the power of science. Very much pro-vax. The earth is not flat. I love neuroscience. I love every type of science, usually. And I value researching and learning. I'm just saying when a method is not perfected, right, I will take issue with it. And so the thing is what my main issue is that, so I wrote a little ditty out for you guys. I do have multiple issues with the scientific method. Nuance, I still think it's very important and love research, but there is actually a lesson to be taken from military research. Also, nuance, I'm not a big fan of the military. I'm not being, woo, go military when I say this. However, the government does not fuck around with military research. I am not saying that academic research fucks around. I'm saying that we should consider what the powers that be say they believe versus what they actually do and believe works. The military's research methodology is incredibly illuminating and very different from academic research. It is highly applied, multidisciplinary, focuses on complex systems, integrates heavily, and is concerned with effectiveness, threat reduction, and strategic goals. That is a huge departure from academic research. And yes, most military research does concern weapons and methods of destruction. And yes, there are massive ethical concerns that need to be addressed. Listen to what I'm saying. I am not pro-military. I am not pro-weapons. I am not pro-methods of destruction. However, I want people to seriously consider something. If the academic, scientific method is so good, why doesn't the government use it? The government doesn't mind putting the general public at risk, but they do very much mind putting themselves and the military's grand standing at risk. This is a parallel I'm trying to set up. Think of this as the discussion of socialism. The government says that socialism will not work. However, the U.S. military, with housing, healthcare, college benefits, etc., they are socialist notions. The same thing can be said for research methodology. The government and military research, right? They do not use the traditional academic sort of scientific method, right? They are highly applied, multidisciplinary, focus on complex systems, integrate heavily, and they're concerned with effectiveness, threat reduction, and strategic goals. Yes, it is for the purpose of methods of destruction. However, when the government says something doesn't work, a type of system doesn't work, however, they themselves use the system that they said does not work, that is call for concern, right? So, we also know that a lot of hard sciences, the scientists, consider their field of study to be apolitical, do not value or engage with social sciences, and or heavily discount emotional intelligence. They've mistakenly, talking about academic, right, non-military research, academic, non-military research, right? A lot of the scientists have mistakenly adopted the beliefs, that sciences are apolitical or that emotional intelligence is unimportant or that social sciences are beneath them. They've mistakenly adopted those beliefs to keep genuine competition out, often positioning themselves as above that type of information. But that lack of emotional and political literacy can also be used to freeze methodology and development in place by the system. You don't question what you don't know, or you don't question if it could jeopardize your case, your particular situation, your standing. White men dominate the social culture and scientific culture, believing themselves to be the top of the food chain, but they're not. It behooves the actual powers that be for every type of patriarchal subculture to believe that politics doesn't affect them or that they will exclusively gain from it. Complacency breeds mediocrity and failure, leading to a dangerous lack of innovation and genuine discovery. So again, I ask, if the scientific method is so rock solid, why doesn't the government use it? Sarah, you're acting like a conspiracy theorist. No, I'm not. I'm just annoyed because my main complaint is why do none of the sciences integrate information? And you're like, oh, because it's like more of a linear. It's not inherently linear. It's more of a linear process. However, most things in the body and most things in sciences are not linear processes. So, in academic research, we're afraid to get multidisciplinary. Anything interdisciplinary is just, that's hogwash. However, the government, they're not afraid to get multidisciplinary. They're not afraid to integrate information. And so and then speaking of emotional intelligence, right? You think of what does a narcissist do to, and you're like, oh, but this is a social science. This is not like actual science. Like this doesn't apply here. It does. So the most areas of research are like very divided, right? They isolate, they only speak amongst themselves. I've done several episodes in the past where it's like someone will ask a question and I'll be like, this question has been answered 1,000,000 times, right? Redundancy is a massive issue in the sciences. Communication, lack of communication in the sciences, especially between people who should respect each other. Like, chemists and physicists are operating on the same types of principles. I don't understand why they're disrespecting each other. So when you think about how a narcissist operates, and we do live in a narcissistic culture, I know that is part of the social sciences. However, how a narcissist will isolate, what they'll do to their victims is isolate them. Make sure they don't communicate with anyone else, right? Make sure they don't share information. Make sure they're not comparing notes, right? And you're like, but that doesn't apply to the sciences. It does. The sciences really devalue interdisciplinary, connecting with others and communication, right? And the government themselves, the actual system of B, is not using the method, the standards that they're asking all of academia to use. Why is that? Sarah, this is a conspiracy theory. It's not. I'm saying it's great that I like the scientific method. Sure. But there are some reasons to be concerned. I love research. I believe in science. Science is for everyone. I love science. Anyway, that's what's new with me. Now we're going to get into how to stick to New Year's resolutions part 2. I'm so happy that I caught you guys on New Year's Eve. Woo! And I know, some of you are listening to this while you're getting ready to go out. And take a shot for me, please. Sarah, no, you're sober. I am sober. However, I can still ask everyone to take a shot for me. Especially if you're like, I plan on getting sober on January 1st. Just one for me. So what we're going to start off with is we wrapped up with... Sorry, that's like the mom and the peanuts talking and it's like blurbed out. So we wrapped up with acute stress impairs inhibitory control based on individual differences in the parasympathetic nervous system activity. If your goal for the new year is to eat healthier, you should eat healthier. Emphasis on eat, right? You're like, oh, I want to lose weight. And you're like, I'm not going to eat. You need to eat. Because the thing is rest and digest, parasympathetic nervous system, that counteracts, balances out fight or flight. And if you want to put yourself into a fight or flight, if you want to lessen your control over yourself, then starve yourself. And Sarah, I do know what it's like that. Oh, trigger warning. Have an eating disorder, right? You need more control. You need to be able to regulate your stress levels. If you're like, I'm going to deprive myself of food and that's what's going to work. Science of nutrition. It is linked below in this episode as well. You need to eat. All right. So we're going to start off with reparenting yourself. And you're like, but I thought this was about New Year's resolutions. The thing is a lot of people, including myself, really love to beat ourselves up for failing. We have like a perfectionist ideals, right? If we don't do something perfect, then we're a loser, failure, idiot. And I've talked about this before. If you want to achieve perfection, you're talking about purely the realm of conceptual, because the thing is no human is truly perfect, and you shouldn't be perfect. You're thinking of yourself as an idea, right? Perfection is an abstract idea. And so abstract means it's not rooted in reality. And so you're evaluating the idea of yourself, the concept of yourself. The concept of myself should be perfect. All right, you exist. You have skin. You have blood. You can reach out and touch things. If you touch a stove right now, it'll hurt, right? If a concept were to touch a stove, it would not hurt, right? So you have to reparent yourself. And so this is seeking healing for your inner child. So the key insights from this are reparenting involves nurturing one's inner child through self-compassion and addressing unmet emotional needs for childhood. Also, it's helpful because, I'm just going to take a best guess. What most people are trying to achieve with New Year's resolutions is most likely undoing something traumatic, some seed trauma from childhood. You're right. And the thing is I'm not calling anyone out, body image issues or nutritional issues. I got that. The thing is my mom is not an almond mom and she did have body image issues, but the silver lining to that was that they were more functional since she was in the military. So it was more it was a weird method of torture where it's we're taking the physical fitness test for the Marines as children. So I guess there was some element of we want you to be strong. However, I do have body image issues because it just, the thing is my dad I was gonna make a joke. My dad in college to make money did some leg modeling. So when you compare yourself to your parents, but he actually did. My dad has incredible legs, and I'm just so jealous. No, but yeah, most of this is New Year's resolutions are just reparenting yourself. So this is how you reparent yourself if you're gonna approach. It also empowers individuals to heal past wounds, fostering personal growth, New Year's resolutions, and emotional resilience. Resilience, again, $1 million word for anyone who's ever been through some tough shit and came out the other side, right? You've got resilience, you got grit. You've got grip. Gorilla grip. Anyway, so there's also techniques including positive self-talk, mindfulness, and establishing healthy boundaries to support well-being. Boundaries for yourself and others. The thing is like knowing your limitations and knowing also when someone else is not you, right? So when you're doing New Year's resolutions, a lot of people, I talked about this last time, are going to be so tempted to chime on in. Putting up a boundary is also establishing they are not me. When someone says, if I were you, right, they're describing a second or third person, third conditional in like English, which is a highly unlikely, unreal scenario, right? They are, again, evaluating you two as a concept, and there is no boundary. If I were you. They are saying something that is completely unreal and imagined, something that is highly unlikely to happen. So, again, go over syntax, English language, should, would, could, have, all this stuff. All the things that people are probably going to meet you with. Understand word structure, word meaning, phrase structure, phrase meaning, and then also boundary between you and other. If someone's going to chime in on, make sure that the boundary you built exclusively for them is soundproof, okay? Because they are, their logic is not sound, so you'd like to tune out that noise. Boundaries can be incredibly helpful. So in our work as therapists, I'm not a therapist, we often encounter the undeniable truth. We never truly outgrow our inner child. You are all versions of yourself at once. So yes, a youthful part within us persists, sometimes surfacing to seek acknowledgement and expression. Have you ever noticed an unexpected surge of emotion, seemingly from a place deeply rooted in your past, and been left wondering, why did I react that way? Excuse me? This experience represents an integral part of our psyche, shaped during our formative years and yearning for recognition and acceptance. We call this part of ourselves our inner child. Yes, I'm talking about New Year's resolutions. And in the past, one of my resolutions was to get sober, and I did. And then when I got sober, I wanted to start reading, and I did. And I spent 18 years of my life living in isolation, just moving around a lot. And then when I went to college, I immediately started drinking, and then I was drunk for 10 years. So I was just numb for about 28 years. And so when I think about reparenting my inner child, I imagine my inner child laying in a hospital bed, and I keep showing up, right? Actually, I never leave, right? I read another book, I do another craft, I do another show, I get a ticket for that show. It's just in hopes that when my inner child wakes up, or the periodic times that my inner child appears, I have this emotional reaction. My inner child sits up in the bed, freaked out and scared, and sees adult Sarah, and that the fact that adult Sarah is still there. Adult Sarah keeps showing up for little Sarah, right? And not only that, is that it's hard to see change, right? Especially when your inner child shows up. When my inner child shows up and adult Sarah is sitting in that, quote, hospital room, I have another book and another book and another book and another craft and another, thing. So when inner Sarah wakes up, she sees that I never left. And not only that, there is proof, right? There are mountains of books everywhere. There are drawings, there are crafts, there are, photos of memories. And that is proof, not only did I not leave, I improved with my inner child. I did not abandon myself. I was compassionate. I was patient. And I keep showing up. I mean, the thing is it's not even that I kept showing up. It's because I never left. We're all versions of ourselves simultaneously. So yes. When nurtured and acknowledged, our inner child brings forth a wellspring of creativity, inspiration, and joy. However, when neglected or wounded, it can leave us feeling disconnected and unfulfilled, playing out in patterns that are familiar to old, insecure attachment dynamics from long ago. Before you continue, you might like to download our 5 positive psychology tools for free. I always love a good free resource. But these detailed science-based exercises will help you increase the compassion and kindness you show yourself and give you the tools to help your clients, students, or employees show more compassion to themselves. So this is for therapists. However, I assume you should always take whatever I say to your therapist, as I am not a mental health professional. Yeah, sure, I do give life advice. However, I love and always encourage running things by a mental health professional or a primary care physician, any licensed physician that can help you incorporate and understand this on a bit of a deeper level. So this article contains what is reparenting, how does reparenting therapy work. So reparenting, as therapists, I'm a therapist, we understand the journey of healing is not a quick fix, but rather a profound process of questioning, self-discovery, and growth. Reparenting can be one part of this healing process. So the importance of asking questions, feeling like you can ask questions, so when you ask a question, you have to be open to the idea that you could be right or you could be wrong. However, the thing is it's the question, it's the answer, your previous understanding that's wrong, not you. And this is why I always recommend What We Value, The Neuroscience of Choice and Change by Emily Falk, because we often associate what we value with who we are. And so if you get an answer wrong, or someone tells you that your understanding is wrong, you're going to be like, oh, my understanding is wrong. I value understanding. I'm wrong. You're not wrong. Your understanding was wrong. However, if you always associate what you value with who you are, it's going to make it incredibly hard to change. So one of my, part 2 to my suggestions for everyone editing their New Year's resolutions is remove your work from your worth, right? If you tie your work and your ego to your worth and someone takes a shot at your work, right? Since you are tied together, it's kind of like setting up your work on a podium and then standing right behind it. And then someone has a gun and they shoot at your work, right? If your work does not stand up to scrutiny, this shot, it's going to shatter and it's going to pierce you, right? And so while that hurts that they shattered your work, it makes it worse because it absolutely shredded you, right? Now you're psychologically deeply damaged. You're going to be in the gym fighting demons, as the dudes say. So remove your worth from your work. So when someone does take a shot or critiques your work, right, they can shoot your work, and if your work shatters, that does suck. However, if you are a safe distance away, you're like, oh, damn. Well, I spent a lot of time on that, but thankfully I wasn't standing right behind it. So remove your worth from your work. Distance is good. Also, it helps you gain perspective. You're literally seeing, who's critiquing it, your work. And also the thing is they're not literally pointing a gun at your work unless your work is creating, different types of, gelatin, body gelatin to be shot at. In that case, it's probably not going to shatter. It's going, if your body gelatin that you made shatters, then you're really bad at your job. And I'm really happy that you removed your worth from your work. Anyway, growth, self-discovery, reparenting. So there's, it's transformative method for healing the wounds caused by insecure attachments to our childhood givers. I did do an episode on this, right? Trust, the foundation. I'm so serious. Think of lesbian terms. Foundation of this house. Everything is trust. You have to trust yourself. When you trust yourself, you're consistent, you're reliable, right? You show up for yourself. If you keep abandoning yourself, keep sabotaging your own goals, you're not going to trust yourself, right? You need consistency. It doesn't have to be perfect consistency. You just have to periodically, at a regular interval, show up to yourself. Think of it as like a kickball game. Every Tuesday night, 8 p.m. That's when you got to show up. You don't got to, you could show up every day. However, just think of it more as like kickball game. Show up every day, every Tuesday at 8 p.m. And that's how you establish trust with yourself. So by Nurturing and validating this vulnerable aspect of ourselves, we learn to provide it with love and protection it may have lacked in childhood. To deal with residual attachment wounds, many of us seek reassurance and comfort in external sources or booze, hoping to find comfort through perfect friendships, romantic partners, or spiritual communities. Yet this often proves to be a temporary fix. The thing is your parents are a bit different from friends or romantic partners or spiritual communities because they had a duty of care to you, and also they created you. And so I'm saying this not because my parents, right? They're not exactly super loving, and I do feel a bit removed from myself. I often feel like I'm operating in third person. It's hard to get into first person to be really like associated into my feelings. However, and this is where I feel like a bit of a weirdo. Whenever I get emotional, I get excited that I am emotional because I've been removed from my feelings for so long that when I start to feel myself get angry or sad, I'm like, it's happening. It's happening because it makes me feel like I'm alive. Emotions are proof of life. So if I've felt dead for so long that when I get to feel something strongly, I'm like, I'm alive. That's mainly the thing. So that's a way to reframe emotions. Now, if you were constantly emotionally overwhelmed, then you're like, well, I don't want to, I'm too alive and I'd like to, no, I understand. There's nuance. But yeah, so I want everyone to reparent themselves a little bit. And I'd like you to read through this and you're like, you don't tell me what to do. Okay. I'm just saying you're most likely trying to undo some trauma from childhood. It just helps. So how does reparenting therapy work? Is the process of giving yourself what you didn't receive as a child. This inner work allows us to integrate and honor a vital part of our being, empowering us to reclaim agency over our thoughts, decisions, and relationships. Also, the thing is if your parents, this is super important if your parents projected a lot onto you because, like I've said a lot, words really do matter. You are incompetent. You will never be good enough. Right? They're assigning their inadequacies to you. And so reparenting yourself and realizing that they burdened you with their feelings or they burdened you with cognitive labor, this reparenting is a great way to shed that weight, right? And then actually take ownership of what you are responsible for and your emotions and dropping theirs, right? You know how to phrase it with actual mindfulness techniques and being aware of the vocabulary that you're using, especially when it comes to negative self-talk. But yes. So reconnecting with our inner child through reparenting involves two distinct yet interconnected aspects. 1, reclaiming joy and playfulness. Embracing the carefree spirit and boundless imagination of our younger selves allows us to rediscover the simple pleasures of life. Whether it's sharing silly jokes, engaging in playful activities, or experiencing unbridled delight in the present moment, this aspect of inner child work encourages us to express ourselves authentically and embrace innocence. You know what I'm going to say. Embracing the carefree spirit and boundless imagination, letting yourself mind wander, right? If you have a hard time letting yourself mind wander, literally imagine yourself in your brain going step by step by step, right? To rediscover the simple pleasures of life, whether it's sharing silly jokes, laugh about it, haha, right? Laughter releases endorphins. Endorphins are a natural painkiller. If you use jokes and humor to numb, right? Because painkillers can numb, then let's dial it back. I say this as your friendly neighborhood addict. However, laughter, right, especially in the more serious moments or the moments where you're like, oh, I feel like I failed or I'm going to fail something, make yourself laugh. Watch something absolutely mind-numbing on TV. Don't mind numb, but let yourself laugh a little bit, right? Release. Because when you laugh, your muscles kind of relax. Pain goes away, Engaging in playful activities. This is interesting because it's reclaiming joy and playfulness. I just read On Muscle by Bonnie Sui, and it's like why we move and what moves us. And it talks about, muscles and what they represent, like strength. And she was talking about one of the most joyful activities is jumping up and down. Literally she's approaching it from like how the muscles connect to the brain, and the act of jumping up and down, and she also got in a jump rope, right? Jumping up and down creates the feeling, the most closely associated feeling with joy, right? Like jumping for joy, and jumping rope, hopscotch, right? And so just allowing yourself to jump or move and dance, if you're like, I can't really jump that, and I understand my knees, but allowing yourself to move up and down, and I also would recommend on muscle. And then experiencing unbridled delight in the present moment. Delight. Surprise is the emotion most associated with learning. Delight is surprise and happiness, right? So surprise and happiness are two upper emotions. The main upper emotions, the one that make you, compel you to act, compel you to move, are surprise, happiness, and anger. Anger, we got a table for right now. However, anger is also incredibly important. Protect your rage, especially if you're not easily surprised, are not as happy as you'd like to be. Anger is your last motivating emotion. Do not allow yourself to be rage baited often, because the thing is anger is fuel, and we live in an attention economy, and you're fueling someone's engagement. You're focusing attention on them, right? The reason why brands are so comfortable using rage baiting is because attention economy, you cannot actually split your attention, only switch. So anger will cause you to ruminate, focus on something, and it will fuel them. They're basically destabilizing your mental economy, and they're siphoning all the quote unquote oil out of you. Don't allow yourself to protect your anger. However, delight, right? Surprise and happiness in the present moment, being truly embodied. Because the thing is you want to be able to pay attention to good emotions. When it comes to feeling positive emotions as opposed to negative, we do focus on the negative emotions because the negative emotions are usually anchoring us in place. We're not moving, right? So when you're not moving, you're focusing on the horrible, awful feelings. However, when it comes to positive emotions or energizing emotions, in which anger gets to be grouped in, surprise, happiness, and anger compel you to move. And when you're moving, right, it's very hard to focus attention on how you're feeling, right? It's just now you're just now acting, and you're fueling the process, right? So you need to be able to kind of what's that thing of where it's like a finger scanner, like a thumbprint scanner, of where you need to kind of like understand surprise, happiness, and anger in the moment. However, since they are moving you, it's causing you to diffuse focus. And so if you want to be able to understand surprise and happiness especially, when you are happy, take a moment, pause, and really feel it in your body. Kind of gauge understanding of happiness and how it should feel, because that's the thing that usually throws a lot of people off. Is they're like, I want to be happy, and you don't realize that you have been happy. A lot of people have been happy, right? We have content, which is a very low level of happiness, and people feel content all the time, but you often don't like really sit in contentness, and so you have a hard time recognizing even just the low levels of happiness when they do come and go. So yeah, confronting painful or suppressed memories. For many, the journey of reparenting involves confronting suppressed memories and painful experiences from childhood. This aspect, akin to shadow work or working with exile parts, requires courage and vulnerability as we consciously process and heal deep-seated wounds. So courage and vulnerability. You need strength, and the thing is again, that's going to implicate some sort of movement, right? You're going to have to be able to move through the shadow work. And I was reading, this is what it sounds like again. You have to like be able to harmonize with yourself, and when it comes to harmony, it's kind of like the shadow of the melody, right? It follows. And it's a harmony is like, when you think of like shadow work, right? This is another version of you. You want to be able to harmonize with past you and work with past you to create like a new, like sort of melody, right? And melody is feeling, right? So when you work with shadow you and, not shadow you, and you harmonize with those, right? You don't fight your past experiences. You don't fight your shadows or like what has happened to you. You combine two feelings and you create a complex emotion, right? And so the thing is a lot of people, they're like, I never want to be afraid anymore. However, fear and happiness, right? If you're moving, right, and melody is like you're feeling and you're moving and you feel happy. However, the shadow of fear is closely behind. Don't deny it, right? Work with your fear. And when fear and happiness harmonize, right, they create awe and wonder, right? And so happiness is moving you, fear is kind of trailing behind. And when this complex emotion emerges, you get the feeling of awe and wonder, and that's conducive to creativity and self-exploration, you know? Your it's a childlike sense of wonder, you know? And so don't try to suppress negative emotions. They are so crucial for complex emotions. And delight, again, is a complex emotion, but delight is the only one that's really two positives. So when you hit delight, you've struck gold. But yeah, so don't fight your shadow work. Your shadow, it's a very integral part of yourself. So I will include that with reparenting yourself. And this is just important because you're going to do a lot of things that you're afraid of with a lot of uncertainty when it comes to resolutions. However, fear, again, is an important part of a lot of very wonderful experiences, especially emotionally. It's like, I mean, the thing is you think of awe and wonder as thunder, you know, and you could be afraid of thunder. And obviously, if you're afraid of thunder, that's so valid. However, if you wait out thunder, right, and it grows and grows, then the air gets electric, you know, you start to feel, you know, the hairs on your arms stand up, and then lightning strikes, and then you have your aha moment, and it's just like a beautiful, scary thing to behold. However, it's a powerful, powerful feeling, and that's delightful. It goes from awe and wonder to delight, or if you're really scared of lightning, or if you're being struck by lightning, then shock, and that can kill you. But I'm sorry, I'm being very going into it's toxic shock basically. Just try not to get struck by lightning. Well, I mean, the thing is, it's hard to get struck by lightning twice, but it always happens. Sorry, I sounded drunk when I said that. It happens. So we're gonna go back to how to craft New Year's resolutions. So I talked a lot about clarity, meaning tone. Make sure to take syntax seriously. We also want you, when it comes to reparenting yourself, your parents were unreliable narrators. And we're talking about self-discovery, like discovering who you are, going on a new adventure. If you're going on a new adventure and a lot of the future is uncertain, you want to be a reliable narrator. I understand that there's some pros to being an unreliable narrator. The main one being mystery. However, the thing is that is great for literary fiction, but when it comes to trying to figure out yourself and your goals, you don't want ambiguity and you don't want mystery. You're going to take a lot of detours, and then, you're going to get confused, and there's going to be a lot of suspense. Now, normally in a work of fiction, this is great. However, when it comes to fixing some shit, I assume you're like, I just want the most direct path. Be a reliable narrator. So we want you to be a reliable narrator for your goals. Specifically, it's completely fine, to add flourishings when you want to express yourself. However, expression is a more aesthetic dimension that lies on top of this foundational dimension, right? You want to establish what a reliable narrator is before an unreliable. And chances are, if you're trying to reparent yourself, or if there's some New Year's resolution you're working on, your parents were somewhat of unreliable narrators. And so if your foundational skills are unreliable narrators, well, reliable narrators are foundational to unreliable. So we kind of actually do all have to, I feel like, the friend where it's like, guys, actually, should we clean up before we go to the party? Oh, well, Cynthia invited us over and we're kind of like leaving it a mess. We do actually have to go back and do reliable narrator first. So for reliable narrators for your goals, active voice, it communicates clarity and directness. It identifies who's doing what or did what. You want to learn something. I want to eat healthier. And it's direct and clear. Active voice. Engagement. It pulls the reader into the action, creating momentum. Conviction, right? So momentum is mass times velocity. And if you have momentum, you, right, your sense of self, your mass, your conviction, the weight of your convictions has velocity. These heavy convictions are moving, right? So we have momentum. And you have conviction that moves. If you have conviction that grounds, right, you're standing your ground, that's great, but also you want to change. So we're going to have to develop some momentum. And then accountability. It shows the narrator is taking ownership of the narrative. So the thing is you're trying to take ownership of, these changes. Because, it would, and I don't want to tell you how to live your life. But if your New Year's resolutions are what other people told you should do and they're not a therapist or they've never done the things that they're asking of you or they're like completely unreasonable or unrealistic, I don't think you should do them. But again, that's another person chiming in on your life. I'm saying we want to, be accountable to ourselves. We want to be engaged with ourselves. We want clarity and directness, right? Because if we have clarity and directness, we have engagement, we have accountability, we have, right, the relief of clarity, the weight of knowing. However, we're moving forward. 4D continuum. Okay. Passive voice, however, is used strategically. It emphasizes shift. It focuses on the object or the event. And while passive voice is great with works of literature, it shifts focus. There's also vagueness. It hides the actor when they are unknown or unimportant. You are known and you are important. You should say this to yourself. I know myself. I am important. I know myself, I am important. So, we do not want to use passive voice because we do not want to hide. Hiding from a problem increases stress and hinders growth, creating anxiety. You hide from yourself, you retreat into yourself. This is where you get the pulling sensation in your chest, that deep, we get into the reflex arc with like I'm blanking on the term. It's like a pulling into yourself. Anyway, there's also character. The pulling into yourself is shame. Yeah, don't hide from yourself because that communicates shame. Nervous system bidirectional. Pull into yourself. You're going to feel ashamed and it's going to be hard to do anything and hard to change. And then passive voice, character, narrator, limitation. A passive voice conveys a character's uncertainty or an attempt to be objective, like in scientific writing. So, if you use passive voice with your goals, it's going to communicate uncertainty. And the thing is you want certainty. Because the more uncertain you are, the more your brain is like, okay, well, everything could go wrong. And then you get anxious. So active voice, clear, direct engagement, accountability. That is foundational. And then all my writers out there, anyone who wants to get really creative, remix their life, then we get into unreliable narrator. However, we're trying to be reliable narrator. So your brain needs certainty with directions and goals. As more uncertainty, the more instability, things feel more like a threat. And when things feel more like a threat, there's your stress response. Okay? So, like I talked about with, the will and the way. So editing the will to make it more objective will move it to the more cognitive domain, the way, and you're giving your thoughts too much control in this action. It decreases motivation, right? So if you put too much weight on your thoughts and you let your thoughts spiral, right? And now there's threats and all this stuff. Now your head is taking over and we need your body because your body has more of the positive emotions. Can your head? Yes, obviously create positive emotions. However, happiness is most likely going to be coming up from below. So, and that's because it requires a lot more movement. Now, if you can't move, are you going to be perpetually unhappy? No. The reason why singing and talking about your feelings and spoken word works because you have muscles in your face and in your neck and in your chest. So you're moving. So how you talk to yourself does matter as you are a person, and how you talk to people to motivate them does matter. I matter, right? I am a person. This is my life. These are my goals. I want to do this, right? Okay. So the advice, just wrap up. I want to, not I don't want to. We need the desire of I want, also not does put distance between you and I and the goals in the sentence and cognitively. It also takes more time to process, slows you down. 2, brush up on syntax of the language your goals are written and processed in. If you are bilingual, translate the goals when considering your goals as directly as you can. Okay? And then 3, become a reliable narrator for your goals. It's okay to add flourishings, emotions, expression, tension. Yes. However, when it comes to your goals, you want to make your real life goals unambiguous, clear, crystal clear, transparent, easy to follow. Okay? Everything in life is already confusing as shit. No one says what they mean or does what they say, right? Everything else is incredibly foggy. The one thing you want to have is clear as day motherfucking goals. One foot in front of the other through this godforsaken year. I am calling this now. Something awful is going to happen. Oh, Sarah, I'm not. I just know with the current administration. I'm not saying with you personally. I'm saying you want what you're about to do this year to be clear as shit. So yeah. Moving along, if you have a goal and you do not have someone who is equally committed to the goal or genuinely supporting your goal, I do strongly advise turning to the internet and content creators who have achieved that goal. Now, this is not to blow smoke up my butt or be like, look at where I'm coming from. I'm saying a lot of goals, especially if you're trying to pursue a new belief, a new identity, you want to be able to identify with someone if there's not someone readily available in your environment. There should be someone who you can kind of model yourself after. Is that to say worship them like a god? No. Guidance. Right? Humans are social creatures. So when it comes to finding a content creator who's achieved something you want to achieve, this is my advice. If, like, say, example, your whole thing is losing weight or eating healthier. When you choose a content creator to model that goal after, do not start your goal at their current time of posting. Go back in their videos and start from their beginning of their journey, the beginning of when they started documenting their journey. If you start off watching the videos now, you're going to compare your current self to their current self, right? And that will add an additional mental factor and stress, right? You want someone who you can feel like, there's someone else doing this with you, even though they're not currently, right? Go back on their timeline when they first started documenting their journey. Start from the beginning, right? You need to see yourself represented in someone else, feel a mutual shared connection. Will it be parasocial? Yes, so use discernment, but I'm saying representation does matter, And the thing is it's so you can see yourself directly. You don't have to think abstractly. You don't have to pull bits and pieces out of this person, and then you have to think, oh, now it's all conceptual. We want to ground our goals in reality. Go back in time on their timeline when they first started documenting their journey. This is just my advice. And the same thing applies to if you're trying to learn a second language. Find a content creator who documented their journey of learning a second language. Because the thing is if you can compare yourself to where they currently are at, right, that's going to be incongruency. And the thing is it's a natural incongruency. However, the feeling of incongruency will remain. And so if you have an inability to reflect and there is an incongruency, that incongruency is going to feel not right and you're going to think that you are not right. No, the feeling of not right is meant to be applied to comparing you to. You are perfectly fine. What is actually not right, does not feel correct, is the fact that these two comparisons are incongruent. So, go back to their beginning. Also, be aware of who is a teacher and who is a peer when it comes to content creation. If you compare yourself to a teacher, they are experts, okay? Just because the teacher is maybe younger than you or for some reason, for some godforsaken reason, you consider them less respectable than you, that does not mean you compare yourself to the teacher. And the thing is when it comes to comparing yourself to peers, it's not to, it's not actually just to compare. It's to just see yourself and others and be like, oh yeah, I'm not alone. Other people have gone on this journey before me. Because the thing is when you pursue a new goal, like I talked in the first episode, a lot of people don't like to see you change. It's nice to see someone else who went through big changes or the changes you want to go through. And the thing is they're most likely going to discuss, hardships or shit they had to deal with. One of them being, people felt less good for them, right? Or people, they were discouraging. And when you're on your journey, you're going to be discouraged and people are going to give their inputs. So it's nice to know that you are not alone. When what really helps me along my reading and learning journey is that when I do propose theories, like I know the first part when I talked about I have an issue with the scientific method, people are going to ignore all the nuances that I added. They really are. And they're going to think, oh, Sarah's crazy. And they have. And they will. And they're going to try to convince me that I'm nuts. Even though I have a very legit critique and whatever. So when you go through changes, it's just nice to look to someone who's going through those same changes or has. And also if you want to know if it gets better, a content creator who's documented their entire journey in the past, you can skip ahead and see that it does. But then again, go back to the beginning. So next, we need to set some expectations. Actually, before we set expectations, we need to set standards. A lot of times, if you're raised in a house where your parents did not have standards, but they had expectations, setting expectations with no standards leads to confusion, frustration, and conflict. There is no baseline for what's acceptable, causing unmet expectations, stress, low morale, ambiguity, inconsistent performance, and emotional distress as there's a gap between vague hopes and reality. It is inefficient. Your brain is wired for efficiency. You will be working against yourself. So set standards, your standards, before you set expectations, right? And I talked about how, take it easy in the first month. Your first month should be establishing standards. You need a baseline. Because we talked about, if you want to get creative with it, you edit the rhythm, you need a solid baseline. If you're setting high expectations for yourself every month and you don't have any standards, think about it in terms of business. If your boss has expectations, but they did not give you a baseline, you're going to get really stressed. The same thing will apply to you. So standards are minimum requirements for consistent, repeatable performance. Okay, like I talked about, Tuesday, 8 o'clock, show up to kickball. Tuesday, 8 o'clock, show up to kickball. Just give yourself some standards. And then I do have an article linked because I'm just basically going to be applying. So for your goals, give your goals some standards before you give expectations. You're putting cart before the horse. And then you're going to, when you put the cart before the horse is going to you run right into the cart, and the cart's going to flip over. And then now the horse has to pick up all the cabbage, and the horse doesn't have thumbs. And now you're shit out of luck, and you run back to town, and then you hide in the stables, and you feel ashamed, and you withdraw into yourself and your little horse baby. And, yeah. So standards influence how we live our lives and can be thought of as values that guide our behaviors, such as valuing education, kindness, and helpfulness. So when you have standards, they're your guiding values. Again, we often mistake what we value with who we are, and that's because of proximity of values and self, However, the thing is if you set some values periodically far apart, and you kind of it's kind of that thing of where like a hacky sack race where someone, that's wrong. I don't know. Your guardrails are your values. If you imagine yourself walking across like one of those rickety bridges, think of every time you grab a rope to be like helpfulness, education. Keep it moving. Kindness, helpfulness, education. Kindness, helpfulness, education. Those are your standards that you're setting that are guiding you. You periodically remind yourself of them, and then the expectation is to get to the other side. If you get to the other side without standards, there are no guardrails on this little rickety bridge. Best of luck. You're going to be so fucking scared. I'm so sorry. That was just an analogy to help you understand. If you have high expectations, you also have high anticipation of events. The dopamine spike during anticipation is much higher than if you just were chugging along. And while dopamine can be great, dopamine is an upper. If you want to see someone on uppers, you know what? I'm going to say from personal experience, don't take 230 milligrams of Adderall. You know what? This got it incredibly, like, it spiraled. Not too many uppers. Set standards and then an expectation. Get across that bridge. Not on uppers. Because the thing is you do shake and then the bridge is already rickety and uncertain, and then it's just you're gonna flip it and then drop to the waters below. Crocodiles. There go your arms. Sorry, this is devolving, but I'm trying to make it fun because last time it was serious. Also, don't be afraid to make mistakes like I was talking about. This is a marathon, not a sprint, and you take it easy at the first part of the marathon. If you trip in the first part of the marathon, this is also where people are like, oh, I need to restart because I fucked up, January 15th. No. If you trip during a marathon, in no fucking realm does anyone make you go to the starting line again, right? You trip during a marathon, you get up, you laugh it off, right? Laugh it off. Don't make eye contact with anyone directly around you and keep going. If you trip, right, you accidentally drink or you miss a day at the gym, you don't make yourself go back to the starting line. You just get up, ha 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 ha. That's so funny. Endorphins, right, make you happy. They're also painkillers. Keep it moving, bud. Okay. Also, don't be afraid to make mistakes because the thing is your brain can also get rewards from prediction errors. But this is just learning to set expectations that are reasonable. The brain uses prediction errors and learned regularities to refine its anticipation. Refine that upper. It's going to say go from, but again, substances. In familiar sequences, neural activities shift to precede the actual events, demonstrating how experience sharpens predictive capabilities. However, error predictions, they're highly rewarding for learning in a positive and negative way. Positive errors, that went better than expected. This mentality drives approach and learning. Negative errors, that went worse than expected. That teaches avoidance, right? So when you're trying something new and you're like, accept the possibility of being wrong. And maybe if you expect to do something wrong, make the expectation small, okay? And so then if, you do that, you accidentally do that negative error, right? However, you keep going and you're like, oh, that went better than expected. You get a reward from that. That went better than expected. However, that went worse than expected. You set your expectation too high, and now you're teaching yourself what your parents basically taught you. They set really high expectations on you as a kid. They're like, get straight A's and know all of my emotions without me communicating them. Oh, you fell short. You are worse than I expected. And you're like, this is so humiliating. Yeah, your parents set that up. So do little steps at a time. You're reparenting yourself. You're growing and learning. So setting realistic standards will give you more opportunities for positive errors, more that went better than expected events. And since you're learning something new, the novel aspect of it will heighten the saliency, sticking power. It will keep you going. So when you learn something new, novel, surprising, past your default mode network is your saliency network. So it's going to spike everything, right? Happiness, delight spikes. And now we're in the saliency network. Saliency has grip, right? And so you're trying to establish a new behavior, a new pattern of living, and you want grip to this. You want something that keeps the pattern stable. When that went better than expected, that's surprising, and that's happiness. We double spike it. You're double bouncing, and now you're in the saliency network, and the more likely it's going to grip, and this behavior is going to stick, okay? So that's great. Now, delight also has one ugly cousin, actually brother. Embarrassment, because you have surprise and happiness and then surprise and sadness. However, embarrassment is a social emotion. So if you're like, I don't want to be embarrassed, let's try doing positive things, positive new things, a wee bit by ourselves at first, okay? Because people don't like when you change. They see you doing something different. They're like, and you're like, oh, my heart. So if you're going to try something new, I would start doing it off by yourself at first, unless you have someone in your life who has proven on their own volition, repeatedly, with tangible, intangible evidence, that they respect you and support you genuinely no matter what. They do not have to be prompted. They have repeated it. You have both intangible and tangible proof. Intangible is like feelings, and then tangible is like they've done something, right? Then you share what you want to do with them, because everyone always thinks, oh, my friends are different. That's cool. Getting sober, friends are not different. Trying to become a content creator online, friends are not different. Doing something playful as an adult, friends are not different. Learning something that's an unusual skill, friends are not different. Coming out of the closet, friends are not different. Oh no, my friends will love me if I'm gay or not. You're so sweet. Okay. Some of them will. Most of them. And that's why it's called the dominant culture. All right. So, yes. I'm not saying that all friends are bad. Absolutely not. Just make sure they're tested and approved. Support you, own volition, repeated, tangible, intangible proof. Okay. So yeah. So create reasonable standards and then set expectations. Reparenting yourself, compassion, aim for delight, be discerning on who you share it with, reliable narrator, all of these things I need you to apply. I don't want it to go in one ear and out the other. The importance of muscle movement cannot be understated here. A lot of people are like, oh yeah, I'm getting it. No, you're listening. And while there are muscles in your ear, I need to engage some big old muscle, whether it be your jaw, your calves, your ass, your glutes, your quads, like your ass and then your glutes. I need muscle movements involved. It doesn't have to be a lot, I just need muscle movement. This needs to be applied, or else it will not stick. All right. This has been so much fun. Also, if for setting reasonable standards, I don't want to cover this because it's just SMART objectives, right? Specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, time bound. And I will include that below. And then be playful with it at first. I've already talked about, the importance of play, because a lot of times, a lot of your goals, you're trying to treat yourself compassionately. And, something may be more whimsical or unconventional, right? A lot of people give up. A lot of people are like, why even learn outside of a school context? Oh, their friends would say that. People ask me all the time why I like reading nonfiction. Why? What's the purpose? They're asking me like why I get enjoyment out of learning. Learning is probably one of the most human things we can do. Our brains are evolved to evolve. Like neurogenesis, your brain is constantly giving birth to yourself. It's wired for efficiency. Everything is use it or lose it. Learning is literally what we're meant to do. And people are like, why are you doing that? Well, because this is what we're doing, and get playful with it. Oh, why are you trying to get playful? And the thing is, are you asking me why an adult is playing? So again, dominant culture narrative. We're trying to undo some like hardwired stuff. So you need to go way back to when the code was initially put in. They're discouraging. They're not accommodating to learning. Accommodate yourself. They're not letting you be playful with it. Be playful with it. They're not letting you move. They're restricting movement. And the thing is when you restrict movement and you try to learn and you are sitting in the same position doing the same thing every single day, you get into retroactive forgetting. It's where your memory starts to overwrite because the memories are too similar. Allow yourself to move, be playful, be whimsical. People will discourage you from change because they themselves are afraid of change, or they themselves do not have the willpower or the way. You have the will and the way, Don't be afraid to flub. Because the thing is laugh it off, keep moving. Like I've talked about a million times with Billie Eilish doing that damn talent show. when that one girl was singing on stage, and every time she'd fuck up, she'd go, fuck, fuck. If you stop and scream fuck every time you fuck up, it's going to draw more attention, right? And then when you're in pain, because it draws more attention, the more eyes on you or the more eyes on yourself, the more self-conscious you get. Pain dilates time, draws it out. The experience actually gets longer and more painful. Keep it moving. Also, keep it moving. Endorphins, painkillers, right? We pause, we focus on it. Pain, time gets longer. Keep it moving, laugh it off. Yes, and improv, right? Going off script. Okay. And then I'm going to include some resources, but I do have, some resources for learning for fun or free. And then I also have another girl's Substack that I enjoy learning from. Remember, your algorithm is curated by you. A lot of people have social media addictions, and no judgments. But I'm saying if you want to change some behaviors, your algorithm is informed by your preferences. So intentionally start to seek out people who exhibit those behaviors and the things that you want to do, And so you start to get reminded. And the more you're reminded of things, the more likely you are to consider them. And then considering is the first step to you know what? Fuck it. I might try on some yoga pants. And then you try on some yoga pants, and then you're like, you know what? I like the constriction. It feels like, and then you might go for a walk, right? Tempt yourself. Allow yourself to fall in love. You need exposure to these things. And your algorithm is one way. So intentionally seek out periodically the people that you want to start to emulate, and make sure you block the people that have the unhealthy methods of achieving goals, because they're not helpful either. But yeah, hopefully this was helpful. I'm wishing you guys all the best. This has been a fun little series. I've had an amazing year with Schauer thoughts. Looking back to where I started to where I am now, I was so uncertain, and now I feel incredibly certain. It does help to talk, as this is movement and sound coming out of my face, coming from my lungs, going, we have our larynx or pharynx, we have everything. It's traveling along. Yeah, this is the architecture of me, the architecture of sound. Anyway, thank you guys so much for listening. It's been a great, oh, fuck no, it hasn't. 2025 has been awful, but individually, it's been a learning experience, learning and growing. And it's been a learning experience. Yes. Has it been good? I hate the president, and I hate what he's doing with the place. Granted, the place was already a bit compromised. But yeah, hopefully next year is better relative to us as individuals, and collectively we all work together to, I can't say, but you know what I mean. Anyway, best of luck. Make sure to hydrate tonight and whenever you listen to this. So if you need to play it on a quieter volume, then that's perfectly fine. Yeah, thank you guys so much for listening. It's been a great year with y'all, and I hope to talk to you guys in 2026. I know that I will. But make sure to like and subscribe on YouTube. Rate me 5 stars on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, any place you get your podcasts. And I will talk to you guys next year. I haven't showered since last year. I haven't listened to shower thoughts since last year. Anyway, yeah, I'll talk to you guys next year. Bye.